Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Improve Insight into Connected Data, Leveraging Linkurious Enterprise. My name is Marilee, and I'm part of the webinar team here at Neo4j, and I'm joined by Anurag Tandon, Director, Product Management, Neo4j Visualization, and our special guests from Linkurious, Cecilia Caron and Huang Tran. A few housekeeping items before we get started. We invite you to submit any questions you have throughout the presentation using the Questions tab located at the top of your screen. We'll answer as many questions as possible at the end of today's session, and if we don't get to them all, someone on the Neo4j or Linkurious team will reach out to you directly. With that, I'll go ahead and hand it over to Anurag.
Thank you, Marilee. Hi, everyone. This is me, Anurag Tandon, Product Management Director for Neo4j Visualizations. We have an exciting topic here today for you to hear from our partners, Linkurious, who has been partnering with Neo4j for several years, and we have several joint customers getting advantage of using Linkurious visualizations on top of Neo4j data. Visualization is a topic very near and dear to my heart. Having spent a couple of decades, I should say, I shouldn't age myself, a couple of decades in the business intelligence space, working with businesses around visualizations and how visualizations provide insights into business data. And here at Neo4j, we have several options for visualization. So hopefully we will talk in a lot of detail about the Linkurious option. I did want to set the stage to frame the conversation and present a couple of different ways that we think about visualization here at Neo4j. So having worked with our customers, we find that there are essentially three classes of visualization needs. And in this spectrum, they're depicted as the visualization needs that are at a smaller user scale, but that are maybe low curation, and by curation we mean a visualization class that requires the user to be a graph expert and being able to go and do visualizations by themselves in an ad hoc fashion, closer to the graph, having intimate familiarity with the graph, and being able to explore the graph at will. And so that's one class that we see with graph practitioners and subject matter experts that use this day in and day out. Another class of visualization needs that our customers have are around business domain applications that are for solving a particular business problem, for making sure that their analysts, their people on the front lines can get advantage out of the graph data that the organization has, so that they can make business decisions for the business, and that's the second class that we see. And both of these classes deal with graph visualization in its native form, in a graph visual form, so that the nodes and the relationships of the data are very visible to the user, and they have control over exploring that in any kind of way that they want. And so it might be less curated or more curated, but still the idea is to look at the data in a graph form. And then as you go beyond that, there are many other classes of visualization needs that come about, and these tend to be a little bit less homogeneous in form, because it depends on where the visual is going to be surfaced. It could be something that people are trying to connect their business intelligence tools to and build dashboards and reports and charts, other kinds of charts, not just graph forms. It could be custom visualization applications, one of them being the ICIJ that Linkurious is going to talk about later on today, where there's a custom website and or a website that requires visual data to be represented, sometimes in graph form, sometimes in other forms. And also enterprise workflows that could be very, very sophisticated in terms of their needs to integrate with existing applications or build new applications, build new workflows to take advantage of from the graph-based data, and sometimes even other kinds of data. And so these, this third class tends to be more guided, more curated in terms of how it's presented to the user, and less ad hoc in fashion. But at the same time, these classes vary in terms of how many users in an organization tend to work with visualizations in any kind of way. And so today you're going to hear from Linkurious about essentially their capabilities in the area of business domain graph applications. They specialize in certain kinds of use cases. We'll hear from them on that. We also have Linkurious Augma as another tool that you can use for more custom, front ends and custom application development. And then on the ad hoc side, Neo4j does offer a Bloom product that is for more ad hoc entry-level graph exploration needs that are not necessarily designed for wholesale business domain application. That Linkurious is very, very well suited for. And without further ado, I would like to welcome Cecilia and Huang today from Linkurious so that they can talk to you about what Linkurious has to offer. Cecilia?
Great, thank you for the introduction, and thanks to everyone who's tuning in today. So my name is Cecilia. I'm the digital marketing specialist here at Linkurious, and today I'll just be presenting a brief introduction of who we are and what we do. And then we're going to have a demo of the product and a Q&A session with Huang, our account executive. So before we begin, I want to give just a little insight into Linkurious. We were founded in 2013 in Paris, and today we have around 30 employees and growing. Our mission is to help our clients find insights hidden within their connected data so that they're able to speed up their investigations and ultimately make more informed decisions. So as of today, we're working with more than 70 organizations around the world, and these are organizations in government agencies, financial institutions, and more. Some of which you can see on this slide, like Airbus. We work with Dun & Bradstreet and B4 Bank. So as you may know today, graphs are really everywhere. We see our product being used throughout a number of different use cases. Some of those you can see here, such as anti-fraud, so to fight against fraud rings and stop money laundering. We see it being used in intelligence to investigate things such as phone calls and emails to identify any suspicious individuals. We also see it in cybersecurity to investigate the context around any security breaches and to ultimately assess the impact and stop whatever threat is detected. And data governance to analyze relationships across concepts, processes, and databases. And there are plenty of other use cases you can see here, such as life sciences and supply chain management. But what all of these use cases really have in common is their need to use connected data to make decisions. And with the help of graph databases that are now really more accessible thanks to products such as Neo4j, it's easier than ever before to store and query large, complex data sets. So where does Linkurious come in? Linkurious Enterprise is the #1 graph visualization and analysis platform, and it allows large teams of analysts to really easily make sense of their most complex data and to detect suspicious activities as they happen, all in a really secure and collaborative environment. We know today that our clients are often working on mission-critical use cases, and oftentimes what they're really telling us is that it's not enough for a given analyst to just be able to simply visualize their graph data. So they really need to be able to scale the solution to meet the needs of real-life investigations. So there are a couple ways to do this, and Linkurious Enterprise is really focused on 3 key areas that make it easy to leverage your graph data as compared to some of the other alternatives that are on the market. So the first area we focused on includes the ability to speed up investigations, really no matter how complex the data is. There are a few key ways to achieve this through our cutting-edge investigative features, such as our advanced filtering options. This includes the ability to filter information based on all the properties within your data. It also really allows you to filter out any unnecessary information so that you're able to focus only on what's most relevant to you. We also have our timeline analysis, where you're able to explore the evolution of nodes and relationships over time and can filter your data based on specific dates. And then finally, Linkurious Enterprise provides a geospatial layout, and this really helps to make sense of any geospatial information that you may have in your database. So Linkurious Enterprise also helps automate investigations for greater efficiency. We have an alert dashboard that allows you to detect suspicious patterns that would maybe otherwise go unnoticed. And we also have our query templates that help you turn repetitive investigation workflows into simple forms or buttons. And this is actually really a great way for technical teams to empower analysts with the full power of Cypher. And then finally, Linkurious Enterprise facilitates collaboration in a secure environment. So you can easily connect to your organization's authentication system and manage user permissions. This includes what your users are able to access down to the very property level of their database too. Within Linkurious Enterprise, analysts can also easily save and share visualizations to work collaboratively on projects. And then finally, you're able to integrate with other applications through the use of our API. This allows you to integrate graph capabilities into the tools that you may already be using. So organizations like the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, or the ICIJ as you may know it, were able to leverage those key areas to uncover insights from the Panama Papers, which was one of the largest data leaks in history. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the ICIJ, they're a US-based nonprofit news organization, and they were tasked with analyzing 2.6 terabytes of data to unveil shady schemes in international finance with very limited technical resources at the time. So when they first began their investigation, they faced two main challenges. The first challenge had to do with their data. It was raw and unstructured. So they had to turn millions of unstructured documents into computable information that could be organized, searched, and ultimately analyzed. And the second issue that they were facing was actually how the data was being stored. So they needed to cross-reference all of their different sources in order to eliminate silos and highlight connections. You can see the different phases that they kind of went through to make their data more accessible to journalists on this slide. So starting from the left with their initial raw data that needed to be processed into machine readable format and then stored and indexed into Neo4j, and then ultimately made accessible to journalists with Linkurious Enterprise. So with Linkurious Enterprise, 370 journalists were able to browse through a massive amount of data to find stories of fraud, corruption, and any wrongdoing that was hidden inside that data. And because of that, really breakthrough revelations were made possible. So as you can see here, there were a few key features that ICIJ leveraged, including our security features. These were actually particularly important for journalists who were working in countries where reporting on a political scandal could ultimately have dire consequences. And journalists were also able to visualize networks of geographical data and were able to use an API to create and embed visualizations into its news platforms. And this was something that really allowed their readers from all over the world to really quickly grasp the complexities of financial networks that were unmasked by the ICIJ. So today, the ICIJ continues to investigate stories of corruption, of fraud, and many more cases with the help of Linkurious Enterprise. So now that you have kind of a better idea of who we are and what it is that we actually do, I'm going to go ahead and pass over the presentation to Huang for a demo of Linkurious, and she'll really start to show you how easy it is to explore your data and really start uncovering relevant information.
Hey, Thanks, Anurag and Cecilia, for the insightful introduction and presentation. And hello to everybody. My name is Huang, and I am an account executive in Linkurious. So today I'm going to do a live demo of the Linkurious Enterprise, and together we will explore how to use Neo4j and Linkurious Enterprise together to uncover insights hidden in complex graph data. So for the demo, I'm going to show you how Linkurious Enterprise, we will together explore a dummy financial data set stored in Neo4j, as you see here, that we used a financial gram. And to please be aware that it is just a very dummy data set for the demo. And just for the context, I will pretend that I am a fraud analyst working in a bank X. And I have been assigned to investigate a suspicious client who has missed several loan payments. And together we will explore how to use Linkurious Enterprise to navigate through complex graph data and investigate a case faster, to automate some of the investigation workflows to speed up the investigation process, and also how to use Linkurious Enterprise to detect suspicious patterns in your complex graph data. So let's start with the investigation. So I would use the searching bar right here to enter some text, a name of a client that we are all interested in, who is River Wisdom. So I type in his name right here. He will appear on the screen as a node, and we see all of his information on the left panel. So basically, these informations are available depending on what is available under in your underlying Neo4j graph database, okay? And all of these informations are customizable on the fly with the Linkurious Enterprise UI. So we see the number 5 right here next to River Wisdom. Basically, this number indicates the number of entities that are directly connected to this node River Wisdom. So if we double click into the node itself, we will retrieve quickly all these entities that are directly connected to River Wisdom. But maybe I want to be more specific in the way that I am investigating this graph. So what I can do is to undo to go back to the earlier stage. And then from there, I will selectively expand the information that I am interested in. So for example, I just want to know where is his house, or I just want to know the information regarding his bank account. So this way I have, a total control of what I'm investigating, what sort of information that I am adding on the screen, and it helped me to avoid adding non-relevant information, adding noise to my investigation, basically. And if we notice that for the information such as the home address with the geospatial information on the left panel, you see the latitude and longitude component. You can enable the geo mode and view this specific information on geo map. And there are a few maps that we can switch and use, and you can zoom the node on a very, very street level. Okay. Right now, as I'm in the very beginning of the investigation, so I'm going ahead to extend all the information regarding River that I can find. So right now, at this stage, we see that River's bank account and home address are shared with other entities, and we just simply pick it up because we see the number attached to these two nodes. So I'm going ahead to select these two nodes and further expand to see what are the informations are connected to these two specific informations. So I see that on the screen, there are a few new informations, such as Gardenia Red, who is a person, also a client of a bank, and her bank account. Okay, and so we see that River is sharing the same home address with Gardenia, so maybe they are living together, and Gardenia has a bank account that transfer money into the bank account belong to River Wisdom. So I want to take the investigation one step further by investigating the indirect connections starting from Gardenia Red. So what I'm going to do is to select these two nodes, Gardenia and her bank account, and I'm going to get all the information that. So at this stage, As we see on the screen, we have an IP address and a phone number. And we also have two unknown bank accounts, I would say. So I have two questions in my mind at this stage of the investigation. Who are the owners of these two bank accounts? And basically, who can share the same, I would say, pieces of personal information with Gardenia, like IP address and phone number. So to find out the answer for these two questions, I can just quickly select, this group of nodes that I want to further investigate, and then get the information quickly. So here we see Gardenia share the same IP address with Aline Royer. She shared the same phone number with a person called Mark Jordana. And Gardenia has a bank account that transfer money into the bank account belong to Philippe Pablis. So basically, this is the way that they are connected to each other. And further down the line, I can further investigate Philippe, Aline, and Mark. I selected these three nodes and then expanding all the neighbor. Right now, what is in front of me is basically, I would say, a network of people that has IP address, phone number, bank account, and then they're sharing multiple pieces of personal information. So for example, Philippe shared the same home address with Mark, who basically shared the same phone number with Gardenia, who shared the same home address with River Wiston, who is actually our starting point of the investigation. So maybe this could be a little bit complex, and what I wanted to is just to follow the money flows, to look into the specific bank account and the persons related to that. What I can do is to leverage the filtering options provided within the Linkurious Enterprise UI to quickly filter out that non-relevant noise. So what I can do is to remove the address, the IP address, and the loan and the phone number. So this stage, I only see the person and the bank account's information. Okay. Maybe what I wanted to is to quickly find the answer for my question. So here I have 5 different bank accounts. Which one that holds the most valuable balance? What I can do is to leverage the amount property of the node. So when I click into the amount, as we see here, we have a graph of the different bank accounts and its value, and we see here the slider, and we can just move it all around, and then we see there's only one bank account left that has the I would say the biggest value of more than 240K, 40,000 US dollar. So that is one of the quick way to help us to find the relevant information for our investigation. I bring everything back. One of the other way that helped me to really investigate the transactions, between these different bank accounts is to look into the time elements, the specific time when this transactions is happening. So what I can do is to open the timeline right here. And then select the properties, which is the timestamp date. So we have in front of us a graph, a distribution, I would say, of different transactions over time. We can change the zoom settings. So if right here we're looking at the, I would say, the month level. If you want to change onto the day level, you can do that, or the year level. Let's go back to the monthly level. Let's say we just want to look into the specific transactions that happening between a specific time range, let's say between May and June. What we can do is to pick a date, simply, a starting date and the end date, or we can just open the slider and then move it along. So as you see here, a few of the transactions has become invisible, and we're left with, for example, 1 and 2 transactions that match with our searching criteria. I'm going to bring everything back. Okay, so at this stage, maybe what I want to do is to make a report of this visualization to share with my colleague who assigned me on this investigation task. What I can do in terms of collaboration is to, first of all, share this visualization. I'm going to give it a name, Suspicious Activity Report number 12, for example. To save it. And then what I can do is to share with my colleague who perhaps want to have a look into my investigation to collaborate with me. So for example, I'm sharing it with my colleague called John. I can specify what he can do with the visualization. So he can read only, or he can also modify it, or he can also modify and even share it with other users. I can also export this visualization into a number of different formats right here, like Excel spreadsheet, JSON file, or even a PNG picture. Okay. So what we saved is right here on the dashboard. Okay. So basically, we have dynamically explore the graph step by step, I would say very much manually. And this process, however, can be speeded up by what we call query templates. So I'm going just to show you a quick example of that. Maybe this time I want to start with gardenia rat here. So for example, I can just quickly click into run the free level contacts button to immediately retrieve all the clients that are separated from gardenia by a maximum of 3 indirect connections. And I see the result immediately. So basically, how does this work? In the background, when we click a query that has been set up previously is launched, and we can find that predefined query right here on the query templates tab. Okay, so these queries can be implemented quite straightforward, I would say. Let's look into one example right here. So we can see, what's really behind that free level context query, right? It's just basically a simple cipher query. Now this one query template example, but you can do a lot more by creating your own query templates to automate the recurring investigation workflows. So for example, some of our clients have built queries templates to find like common neighbors between multiple nodes, or find a shortest path between different entities. Okay. So far, we have seen how to investigate a client who we know that he or she is suspicious. But what if we want to be more, I would say, proactive and automatically surface the sort of suspicious connections among clients that we just uncovered? And Linkurious Enterprise basically provides an alert system that help us achieve that. So this is the alert dashboard. We have prepared an alert that detects potential synthetic identities. And first we'll see what an alert looks like from the perspective of a developer or a scientist. And then we'll see what an alert looks like from the perspective of an analyst. Okay, so this is what an alert looks like behind the scene. Pretty straightforward. So this is a cipher query which identifies a group of people who are connected through shared addresses, IP addresses, and phone numbers. And our Linkurious Enterprise then will monitor your data and create an alert every time this pattern emerges. And basically, you can choose the frequency, how often you would like to run this sort of alerts. Now, as the analyst, I can easily review the result. they appear in a list where I can see the individual alert. Okay. Now, if I want to check a particular alert, so for example, I have just, simply double click into the alert itself to preview it. And if that's enough for me to make a decision, then I can already confirm or dismiss the case. If not, I can open the alert in the full Linkurious Enterprise to do a deep dive. So we have seen how the Linkurious Enterprise alert system makes it easy to monitor the data, to react quickly against suspicious behavior. I hope you find the demo insightful, and now is the time for the Q&A.
Great. Thank you so much, Huang. That was super insightful. So we're going to move into Q&A. Just to remind you that you can type your questions into the Q&A tab. And I know we've gotten several questions about the presentation, the recording, the slides, and yes, later today we'll be sending out a recording of this session as well as a link to download the slides. So you will be getting that later today. So we've had several questions that have come in so far. So we'll go ahead and get started. So first of all, let's see. Is it possible to change the visualizations layout with Linkurious Enterprise? Huang or Cecilia, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. I take that one. So yes, it is very possible to change the layout of the visualization. What you can do is just simply right-click on the screen and then edit the layout. And then there are different options to choose there.
Great, thank you. Also, and this one might be for Anurag or for you, Huang. What is the difference between Bloom and Linkurious Enterprise?
Huang, you want to go or?
Yeah, I mean, why not? I think in the beginning, Anurag was making it very clear that one of the, I would say, very big differences between Linkurious Enterprise and Bloom is that if you need an ad hoc, I would say an entry-level graph visualization solution, then Bloom would be beautiful for that. But if you need an enterprise, I would say great product that need to collaboratively work with your colleagues, work with among big teams, or you have the need to fully integrate it, the visualization into existing solution, then Linkurious Enterprise will address that need.
Great, thank you. Anurag, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think Huang addressed it quite well, and I addressed it in the beginning as well. I mean, we're looking
Excellent.
at providing Bloom to pretty much everybody who has a need for Neo4j data, even if they don't necessarily think that they need visualization. Bloom is certainly a great starting point for them to consider that. But as they go into more enterprise-grade needs around security, customization, all the good stuff that Huang was showing us today, those needs go sometimes beyond what Bloom can provide, and Linkurious is a great solution for those kinds of needs.
Great, thank you. Okay, so how are you able to fix the position of a particular node so that it doesn't move around when the visualization is expanded?
Yes, the answer is pretty straightforward as well. There's a possibility to pin a node. So simply just right click on a particular node that you want to fix the position on the screen so that it will not move around.
Okay, let's see here. What else do we have? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I see quick questions here about the possibility to edit and add and make change to the Neo4j data via the Linkurious Enterprise UI. So I want to quickly answer that. That is yes, it is very possible. As I mentioned, early on, if you remember, there was a left panel, to show all the properties of the node. What you can do is click into the edit button, and if you have the right to edit the information, then you can make the change, and all the informations, all the changes you make will be persisted back inside the Neo4j GraphDB.
Excellent, thank you. There's also some questions like, how do we get our hands on Linkurious? Like how can they access Linkurious? Is there a demo set they can use? What's the process there?
Very, very straightforward. We do provide a free trial license so that you can test the product for your own use case, and we'll be very happy to discuss about your use case and explore how we can help with the testing license. So just write to us at contact@linkurious, and we will take it from there.
Great, thank you. Here's a question about Cypher. Can I use Cypher to make a query to use an algorithm as centrality or other ones? Is this you, Anurag?
I think the question is for the Linkurious team in terms of how Cypher could be used to query algorithms.
Yeah, definitely. What you can do is basically leverage the query, I would say, functionality of the product within the Linkurious Enterprise UI. So just embed your own query and execute it to find the answer in your data.
And is that the same for APOC libraries and similarity algorithm? I saw a related question here. So. Hong, do you know?
Say it again, please.
There's a question. In a query template, can I use APOC libraries or similarity algorithm?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, here's another one. How can we treat secret or sensitive data in Linkurious?
That's a very good question, I would say. Since we work with a lot of government agencies and big financial institutions where they really put a lot of focus and attention regarding security. So basically, first of all, we don't store the data. All the data are stored within the graph database, such as Neo4j, right? The only information that are stored in Linkurious Enterprise is the user's metadata. So that is the first part of the equation, I would say. And the second part is that there's different possibility to provide granularly, I would say, in terms of access level. So you can basically create custom group of users and then give them the right of, for example, a certain users in that group would be only allowed to read the data, but not write the data. And you can also take one step further, I would say, down to the property level of the nodes and the edges to grant the access level to your data. So that helps in terms of restriction and protecting the sensitive data.
Excellent. And I think this question might follow along on what you were just talking about. How does Linkurious Security work together with the Neo4j version 4 security scheme?
So within the Linkurious Enterprise, we have a data management scheme. I think the best is to look into the Linkurious Enterprise documentation that we provide very detailed information, and it's available online so that you can understand how to set up this data schema and how to restrict and enable certain users to leverage that.
Okay, great. It looks like we have time for maybe two more questions. Here's one. Can Neo4j be used for batch processing?
I think that's for Neo4j, right? That's for you, Anurag?
I can take an attempt at that because I'm not necessarily sure. Maybe there's a little bit more context that we would need for what type of batch processing the user is looking for. But in general, I would say yes. The answer would be to essentially take data from wherever your source data lives and provide it or feed it into Neo4j and then kind of do any processing. And that processing could be related to running algorithms to understand what's going on in the data, or it could be associated with any kind of other operational needs that you have. So I think maybe a bit more context on the question would help.
Okay, and what we can do is have someone from Neo4j reach out directly to them and get a little bit more information so we can put that in the right context.
I saw one question that maybe this is the last one that we could talk about, but how, Huang, how would you answer whether Linkurious complements or competes with Tableau?
Very good questions. Yeah, we'll be happy to take that. So basically, I'm not saying that Linkurious Enterprise is competing with Tableau, since every application has their own purpose. Whereas with Tableau, you can see beautiful pie chart, bars, and statistic. With Linkurious Enterprise, it's really made for teams of investigation. So if you have the needs for and you're really investigating the connections, the relationships of your data, and see how it makes sense, then that is really the use of the Linkurious Enterprise. What we see so far with our client is that they leverage the Linkurious Enterprise as a complement, I would say, to the products such as Tableau or other applications like Power BI and so. So with the Linkurious Enterprise REST API, you can fully integrate it, the full Linkurious Enterprise web UI with the existing solutions and provide complemented information.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And it looks like we're just about out of time for today. So I just want to thank everyone again for joining us. If your question wasn't answered, someone from Linkurious or Neo4j will reach out to you directly. And keep an eye out for later today that we'll be sending out the link to the slides as well as a link to the recording. So thank you again and have a great day.